Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. Today we continue with our study of the second book of Samuel, Shmuel Bet. We are in chapter 2. We left off at the end of chapter 1 that David and his followers were in the city of Ziklag, and they heard the news of the death of Saul and his son Jonathan and the defeat of the people of Israel at the hands of the Philistines. And in this chapter we're about to study today, we will read of the beginnings of the establishment of the monarchy of David. It was after this, which we had just read of the lament and the mourning of David over the death of Saul and his dear friend Jonathan. And David asked of God as follows, the following questions. Shall I go up to one of the towns of Judah? At this time, David in Ziklag is technically still kind of in Philistine territory. And it should, and remember, David's primary source of support and base of support is within his native tribe of Judah. And we already saw the seeds of separation between Judah and the other tribes of Israel um, that was beginning, those cracks were beginning to form. They already considered themselves somewhat distinct. And David therefore asked God, "Shall I go to now? Shall I move to one of the cities of Judah?" In order to actually establish his leadership, he needs to leave Ziklag and go to Judah, go to one of the cities of Judah, in order to establish himself as a leader among the people. Staying in Ziklag was not the right place for him. So Vayomer Adonai Elav Ale, and God said to him, "Go." Vayomer David Ana Ele, to which city shall I go? Where should I go? Vayomer Chevrona, and God answered him, "Go to Chevron." Presumably, this asking of God typically means asking of the Urim and Tumim, asking the Kohen Eviatar, who was with him, the high priest. Um, he said, "Go to Chevron, go to the city of Chevron, um, famous city of Hebron, which became shortly about to become the capital." So Vayal Sham David went there, V'gam Shtei Nashav, and his two wives as well. Achinoam HaYisraelit, Achinoam, Abigail, and Abigail, Eshet Naval HaKarmeli, who was the wife of Naval from Carmel. It's interesting how she's still being called the wife of Naval, even though she's no longer the wife of Naval. Naval is dead. She's now the wife of David. But uh, to identify her, this is how she's identified. And the men that were with him, Hel David Ishube. So David brought them along, each person with their family, Vayeshvu Bi'arei Chevron, and they all settled in the towns around the city of Hebron. Now, leaderless, Vayavo Anshe Yehuda, the people of Judah came, Vayimshechu Shames David Lemelech al Beis Yehuda, and they anointed David as king over the people of Yehuda. So this is the next step, the next anointing. We had, of course, David was anointed in private. Now he's being, by Samuel, by the prophet, now he's being anointed over his tribe of Judah. By Yagidu David Lemar. And they told David at the time, Anshe Yavesh Gilad, the people, the residents of Yavesh Gilad, Asher Kavru et Shaul, they buried Saul, and so he's being informed that you have this rival group among the other tribes, this time the tribe of Ephraim, who had buried Saul, and we read about them at the end of Samuel 1, how they honored the body of Saul and buried him. And remember, Saul was their hero. He was the one who saved them from their enemies early on in Saul's career. So they're still allied with Saul's family. Vayishlach David Malachim. So David immediately tried to move to bring peace, to bring people together, and to tell the people of Yavesh Gilad that following me is not necessarily abandoning Saul, but I am a continuation of that line. there's no reason why we can't all be united under my leadership. So he sent messengers there, Vayomer Aleim, saying to them, Bruchim hatem la'Adonai, you are blessed to God. In other words, I'm not your enemy, I'm your friend. Asher asisem chesed hazeh, because you have done this wonderful act im Adoneichem, with your master, im Shaul, with Saul, vatikberu oso, and you buried him. In other words, don't think that Saul and I are enemies, and that the fact that you were nice to Saul and that you did him honor is something that I'm going to look at as an act of treason against me. But rather, no, I think that that's a wonderful thing that you treated him well. There's no reason why we all can't be at peace together. So, v'ata, and now, Yas Adonai imachem chesed emes, may God do for you, with you, kindness and truth. V'gam anochi, and I also, se itchem hatova hazos, will do with you in good. I will benefit you. I will treat you well. Asher asisem es hadavar hazeh, because you have treated him well, because you have done this thing. Interestingly, David here places God before himself, demonstrating his humility and demonstrating how he wants to build a monarchy that is based on on the worship and loyalty to God. And now, be strong, strengthen your hands, and be courageous, because your master Saul is gone. So you can't look to him for leadership. You need to be strong on your own. And I have now been anointed as king over the house by the people of Judah, hinting that you can join me and we can all be together, we can all be strong. Notably, David points out to them that being courageous, being strong, means being united and being truthful. However, this was not exactly what was about to happen. Eventually, they would, but not yet. We still have some issues that are about to occur, and let's read about what happened. So what happened was, instead of listening and uniting under David, Avner ben Ner, Avner the son of Ner, who was Sar Tzava Asher lo Shaul, he was Saul's general. His Lokach et Ishboshet ben Shaul. There's another son of Saul who we haven't heard about. We heard about the three that had passed in battle, but apparently there was another son of Saul, and he whose name is Ishboshet. When you have this term Boshet, it means that his real name was Ish Baal, Baal being named after the idol Baal. How Saul had a son who he named after an idol is a different question. But here you have Ish Boshet ben Shaul Vayavireu Machanoim, and he brought him to Machanoim, which was the place where he set up his new capital for the new son of Saul, Vayam Licheu el Hagilad, and he made him the king over Gilad. This was the area that was very loyal to Saul, the Yavesh Gilad, which we just mentioned before. V'el ha'ashuri, v'el Yisrael, v'el Ephraim, v'el Binyamin, v'el Yisrael kulo, and made him the king over all of these people, the Assyrian area, Yisrael, Ephraim, Binyamin, and all of the other tribes of Israel, with the exception, of course, of Yehuda of Judah. So now we have the seeds of the split, um, which is going to tear apart the entire people of Israel in the next hundreds of years. This split has, and which we saw the seeds of the split being laid um, throughout the generations until now. We now have it solidified. We have one king over the tribes of Israel and one king over the tribe of Judah. Ben Arboim Shana Ishboshet ben Shaul. This Ishboshet, the son of Saul, was 40 years old in Malchah Israel when he was made king over Israel. Ushtaim Shanim Malach, and for 2 years he was king before the story that we're about to read. However, the house of Judah followed David. And the amount of time that David was the king in Hebron over the people of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. And then this following story occurs. Avner ben Ner, the Avner ben Ner, the Avdei Ishboshet ben Shlomi Machanayim Giv'ona. They left Machanaim and traveled towards Givon. V'Yoav ben Tzeruya v'Avdei David Yatzu, and Yoav ben Tzeruya, who is the main officer, the main army general leader of David, and the servants of David also went out. Vayifkishum, and they met them uh, al Brechat Givon Yachtav, and at the pool of Givon, there was some pool that was there at Givon together. They met. Vayeshvu Ela al Brecha Mizeh ve'Ela al Habrecha Mizeh, and they sat these on one side of the pool and the others on the other side of the pool for apparently some sort of a meeting, some sort of a negotiation. Vayomer Avner El Yoav, yeah, and it is unclear if the intent of this negotiation was to come up with some sort of agreement or to have some sort of a fight. But what actually happened, we're about to see. Vayomer Avner El Yoav. Apparently, it wasn't a meeting for battle specifically, because there would have been a battle. So um, they had a meeting to discuss some issue which is not being we weren't told about. So Yakumuna on arms. So Avner says to Yoav, "Let the young men get up, Yisachaku lefanenu. Let them play in front of us. Let them do some kind of a mock tournament of sorts, and entertain us as the leaders." Vayomer Yoav Yakumu. So Yoav said, "Fine, let's do that." Vayakumu vayavru b'mispar. Shnei Masar levinyaminu lishposhet ben Shaul. Shnei Masar me'avdei David. 12 young men who were from the tribe of Binyamin. And they were loyal to Ishboshet, the son of Saul, and 12 of the servants of David. Vayachaziku ish barosh re'eu. Each one grasped the other one's head. This is some sort of a wrestling match. V'charbo b'tzad re'eu. And they 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 thrust their swords into each other's sides to kill each other, which does not seem to have been the intent, but the enmity between them led to them killing each other. And they all fell. In other words, the servants of Saul and the servants of David fell in this what was meant to be a tournament, but turned out to be a battle. And this place was called the Chelka, the place, the portion of land at which there was tzurim, at which there was this death, this killing of each other, which is in Givon. So it was named after this very unfortunate and sad event that occurred, which didn't necessarily have to turn out this way, but did turn out this way. Tzurim meaning swords or knives. Vatihi hamilchama kashad me'od bayomahu. On that day, the battle between them became very strong. The enmity and the arguing and fighting between the two groups. Vayinogef Avner v'anshe Yisrael ifnei Avdi David. And the servants of David were victorious, or they were stronger than the servants of Saul, and the servants of David were chasing the servants of Saul. By the end of the day, they had the upper hand. There were three sons of Tzeruya. Yoav, who was David's main commander, and he had two other brothers named Avishai named Avishai and Asoel. Asoel kal biraglav. Asoel was known to be a very fast runner. Similar to one of the gazelles that would prance through the field, he would run like a gazelle. He was a very strong, fast runner. So as Avner and the Saul's men were retreating because they were losing the battle, and they were running back to their capital, to their place, Vayirdof Asoel achrei Avner. Asoel chased after Avner. V'lo natal aleches al hayamin v'al hashmol me'achrei Avner. And when he ran, he didn't turn right or left. He went straight, chasing after Avner as Avner retreated. Vayifen Avner acharav. And Avner turned back and saw Asael chasing. Vayomer, and he said, Ha'atah ze Asael. Are you Asael? In other words, are you Asael? Yoav's brother, Vayomer Anochi, and he said, yes, I am. Vayomer lo Avner, and Avner said to him, Netelucha al yamincha o al smolecha, turn to the right or to the left, don't keep chasing us. Ve'achoz lecha echad mehan na'arim, and grab one of the men. Take a prize, take his cloak, take something to show that you were victorious, but don't do more damage, don't do more killing. And Asael continued to take chase. It seems like Avner must have been in a high place, and Asael was coming closer, and he refused to let up on the chase. By Yosef owed Avner Lemar. And Avner, at this point, and we'll see the way he behaved, Avner truly wanted to develop some sort of peace between the two groups. And Avner did not want this to escalate. It's bad enough. There's enough death, enough killing, enough fighting. He backed off. He backed off from the battle, and as we see in a later chapter, he tried to make peace. He tried to make things work between the two groups, but Asael wasn't letting up the chase. So Avner continued to say to Asael, "Sur l'cha me'acharai." Go from chasing me. Stop chasing me. Turn to a different direction. Lama akecha arza. Why should it end up that I kill you? How will I be able to look at Yoav, your brother? In other words, how will I be able to negotiate some sort of a peace with Yoav if I have to kill you? If you come after me, then clearly you're coming after me to kill me, right? And all this is going to do is going to make the cycle of violence continue to spiral out of control. But he refused to turn away. And Avner struck him down with in his belly with the thrust of the back thrust of the spear. And the spear went through his body, went and he fell there and died there. And everyone who would in future times who would pass by that place would stop at that place and mention this is the place where Saul died. Now that this happened, Yoav and Avishai continued to chase after Avner. Now that he had killed their brother, and the sun was setting, the day was ending. Vehema boad givas Amma, and they chased all the way until the hill of Amma, Asher al Pnei Giach, which faces the place of Giach, Derech Midbar Givon, which is on the road to the Midbar of the road of the wilderness of Givon. And the sons of Binyamin, they gathered under Avner, and they were united in their opposition to David and his men under the leadership of Avner, who was the general of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul. And they stood on the top of one hill. So this battle is escalating, just as Avner was afraid. He tried to turn Asael around so they can each go back to their places. But he said, if you continue to chase me, I'm going to end up killing you. And then things are just going to get worse. And this is exactly what's happening. Things are getting worse. And now you have Yoav and his men chasing, and Avner with all of the Benjaminites now all assembled, ready for an even bigger battle. Avner said to Yoav, are we going to continually fight each other with swords? Is the swords going to continually destroy us? Are we going to continually be destroyed by sword? Don't you know? Nothing good will come of this. It's going to end up a bad thing. Stop this fighting. How long will you wait to tell your people just to go back? Go back to Judah, go back to David. Stop this fighting. All this is going to be is more people killing more people. Who needs this? Vayomer Yoav, and Yoav said, Chayav Elohim. As God lives, it's an expression of swearing, Kilu Lady Barta, that had you not spoken and said anything, that when the morning came, the sun's about to set, we would have settled down for the night, but in the morning, we would have continued taking up the chase. Um, that would be one way of understanding this. However, um, uh, I'm going to reread this verse 27, and the way the commentaries understand this mostly as follows: Ki lulei di barta, had, in other words, if only you would have spoken this way before, then by the morning we would have stopped chasing. In other words, you, instead of choosing, because when Asael was chasing you, you killed him, right? You chose to continue fighting. So Yoav is now flipping the blame on Avner. Avner, you're speaking the language of peace. Why didn't you speak the language of peace before when Asael was chasing you? That would be another way of interpreting this verse. Vayitka Yoav bashofar. So Yoav now, he heard the words of Avner, the more peaceful words now. He blew on his horn, and this time to get people's attention and to make an announcement to tell them to stop fighting. The people that were following Yoav, David's men, stopped. They didn't further chase the people of Israel. That was the end of this battle. So the Avner and his men traveled through the Arava, through that region that entire night. They crossed over the Jordan River. And they passed through Bitron, and they arrived back at their capital, Machanayim. And Yoav, he went back. Shav me'achrei Avner, he retreated from before Avner, from chasing him. Vayikvotz et kol ha'am, he gathered all the people with him. Vayipaktu me'avdei David tisha asar ish v'asael. And other than Asael, he found that 19 other men had been killed. And that was the people that were killed that day. V'avdei David hikub mi binyamin. And on that same day, the end result of the battle was, besides the 19 of David's soldiers and Asael, they had struck down of the Benjaminites and Anshe Avner, and from the men of Avner, Shlosh Meos V'Shishim Ish Mesu, 360 men. Vayisu et Asael, and they carried the body of Asael, Vayikru B'Kever Aviv, and they buried him together with his father, Tzeruya, Asher Beit Lachem, which was in Bethlehem, Vayelchu Kol Halayla, and they traveled all night, Yoav and Ashav Vayeor Lahem B'Chevron, and by the time it was morning, they were already in Chevron. So this battle that was a tragic battle, a tragic fight, that increases the enmity between the two groups. And they started with the possibility of some sort of peace. Through the actions of Abner and Yoav, the uh, the battle didn't escalate even further to an all-out war, but they're on the edge of an all-out war, and certainly they've established that the two are enemies willing to fight and kill each other as opposed to friends ready to work together. um, Through the actions of Asael, who refused to let up the chase, and the actions of Avner, who reacted to Asael by killing him rather than allowing things to settle. We again have some bad choices made here, and the seeds of even worse fighting to come. This concludes chapter 2 as we work through this difficult period of time as David establishes his monarchy, now only over the people of Judah. Now we have a split monarchy. We have followers of Saul on the people of Israel on one side, followers of David and the people of Judah on the other side. We have two generals that are not working well together at all, Avner and Yoav, that have now established an enmity and fighting between each other. Thank you so much for studying this chapter 2 together. Looking forward to studying chapter 3 and, of course, the rest of this book of Samuel together.